HOFT, which means a Hub of Financial Transformation. This is the first time I'm joining you guys, and quite impressed by the organization of this entire thing. So hope that next time there are more collaboration opportunity between us and you guys. Today's topic, very close to my heart, what I've learned from turning around a loss-making business as a finance business partner. So today I'm just going to share three things. Number one, show you how to deploy business strategy into finance business partnering. How can, as a result. And number three, how can you use techniques I've learned to make your business or even your career more successful in the COVID situation. So at the end of this sharing, I'll do a quick session to round up how the loss-making operations technique can be used into current situation. So with that, first of all, I forgot to thank Zishan, Syed, and all the organizers. So thank you for inviting me. So I want to start off with a summary slide. Everything I'm going to talk today revolves around these 3 points. The first one is how we get started on turning around loss-making operations. Number two, how we scope the turnaround. After we do 1 and 2, what are the business strategy that we have to adopt in order to turn around the loss-making operations? So number one is very simple, just gathering information from our internal stakeholder. I'm going to share with you this technique, what I call no constraint rule. I'll elaborate then. External forces is just simply 2 important things, customer and competitor. Then last but not least, after 1 and 2, we will look at what are the appropriate business strategy and business model that we want to maintain or change. Then we set up our resources to align this business model, then execute, and execute. So I just started with the first section first, getting started. Now, I want to bring you to the background of this case first before we go into the details. This case happened to me was 15 years ago when I joined my ex-employer. The situation was in China. When I joined them, the company was making a lot of losses. But before that, I heard that this business was the #1 FMCG market leader 10 years back before I joined. Very profitable, huge cash flow. Then once the industry see that this is such a profitable business, local players, large foreign players with deep pockets all rushed in, and they invest a lot in advertising, new product. They differentiated their branding, a lot of new product innovations. And at the same time, consumer tastes were fast changing in China as the income level of people in China rises. So these players, they invest a lot in the distribution network, make sure their product is seen anywhere within China. And then they invest machineries, new machineries that could produce at half the cost of what the company I worked for previously. And see the obvious fact, loses market share sharply, unable to position itself. So the situation of the company was, it was almost like Kodak just before it goes bankrupt. No blockbusters, BlackBerry. The situation is exactly the same as that. Okay, so with that background in mind, I started to join the company. And when I first joined, I did one important thing. I went to all the functional heads. I went to ask them, what is their viewpoint on the situation of the company? So I wanted to get a grip of the situation from the viewpoint of these functional heads. So the BU heads, or the head of marketing, head of sales, head of production, product, all that. So I went to interview them. The interesting part is all of these guys, they all have different view on how they feel that the company should be turned around. For example, one of them just say that, oh, we should match the competitor price by cutting. Now, price cutting is the most easiest thing to do, easiest strategy to do. If you can price cut and maintain cost leadership, that means you control your costs, you have a margin, and in the short term, you might gain market share. But once you price cut, competitor is either going to do 2 things. they're going to match your price, or they're going to price cut you, or they're going to launch even more innovative product, maybe at a higher price, premium, or at the same price as yours, to eat away your market share. So what I've learned is price cut. Short term, you might have some short-term gains, but in the mid to long term, your margin suffers and you have less and less resources to invest in the future. So I've learned when I talk to these people, I ask as many questions as possible and be very humble. I'm here to learn from them. They are my advisor, and treat all these stakeholders as my best customer, most important customer. So I didn't want to jump into any conclusion. My strategy was to get internal and external feedback as a package before making any recommendation to the management. No constraint rule. Now, I want to explain a little bit. This was something which took me quite some time to figure. When I was in all the key appointment holders, most of them, some of them, they speak. Some of them are very unwilling to share. And even some of them who share, they are constrained. They say nothing will work because we are loss making and we don't have enough resources to turn around the business. For example, one of the functional head actually told me that he felt we should be investing heavily to open up new markets, different sales channel. And then he said he never brought this up because he assumed that the BU heads would just reject the idea. So I saw that situation, and I know that in organizations, there were a lot of silos. Department A, Department B, they don't share information freely, unless being asked to by somebody above them, or this person A gets along with person B, person C, so they share more information. So I have two challenges to overcome. The first thing is how to get more information from them. Second thing is how to free their mind. So I figure out the first thing to do is when they are not so open to me in office, I actually ask them to have a one-on-one lunch, dinner, or even have drinks with me. So that in this informal meeting, I actually ask them for their advice. The second thing I did, because a lot of people are holding back and didn't want to share information, I have to rephrase my questions. I started asking them things like, if there are no resource constraint, what is your suggestion to turn around the business? So with these two things, I try to penetrate, I try to gather as much information as I could. So this no constraint rule is basically to ask the recipients, to get more information from them, to think from an angle, if there's no constraint, what would you have done? So after the first thing, after understanding the internal stakeholders, how they feel, I went to look at the external factors. Now, external factors basically is just two things. The customer is the first thing. The customer, for especially a loss-making company, we must really relook at the customer and really have a very deep understanding of the problem that they face, number one. And number two, target solutions to help them ease their problem or their pain points. So I take this example of this instant noodle company which I was in. Most likely from our study and from our understanding, the customer from consuming an instant noodle want quick and convenient food anywhere, anytime at affordable prices. Now, because of this thing, there are three more sub-points to look at before we have a deep understanding of the customer's problem. The first sub-point is brand positioning. Now, for FMCG, it is quite important that we establish a reliable brand in the minds of the consumers. For example, brand A is very well known for its quality and taste. Brand B for its healthy, you use a less trans fat to fry their noodles, and etc., etc. So it's very important to have your brand positioning. The second point, very, very important, is to really take note that instant noodles are not durable products. They are not like you buy an iPhone, you buy a car, a house. If you do not make it available to the customer as and when they wanted to consume, the customer is likely to substitute. So take for example, I am very loyal to brand A. I have a couple of supermarkets, shops, and brand A is nowhere in sight. I couldn't even buy them, but I could easily find brand B. In such situation, no matter how loyal I am to brand A, and if I can't conveniently buy them as and when I need it, the chances of me substituting to brand B or even to choose something outside noodle will happen. So bear that in mind and really understand the consumer spending pattern. The third point is distribution channel. Any company does not have unlimited resources. So when we distribute instant noodle, we have to distribute in such a way that in places where most likely our customer would like to buy or purchase them. So if this noodle, let's say, is instant noodle, is a cup noodle, which a lot of working people from maybe construction or maybe from more white-collar jobs, they want to have an alternative from the usual lunch. They might go to those convenience shops to buy and add in some of their own ingredients for quick meals. So understanding that pattern, if you want to push through this product, you have to make sure that you're serving these customers. When would they most likely make the purchase and distribute your products into those areas where they are most likely to make that purchase? So the second factor to look at is competitor. Now, a competitor is basically looking at business model. Business model is just simply look at how competitors make money, their key resource execution, what makes them so successful, and think beyond what competitors are doing. So there's a big question that comes along. A lot of people say, hey, why not this competitor is so successful? Let's just copycat and execute. I think from the incident of that noodle business, they have done that before, and they have done that many, many times. Just copycat from the competitor and try to execute. Now, this strategy has proven not useful. Why? Because if you copycat whole lock, stock, and barrel, the execution part, you might not be able to execute as well as your competitor. So even in those cases where you can execute up to 60, 70%, it's very easy for the competitor to switch their strategy. You know, they could price cut you, they could come up with newer products or promotions to disrupt your copycat strategy. So here you are, try to copy everything, try to execute like them, and the next moment the competitor move and have a different move from you. So copycat strategy is something which I do not encourage if you want to turn around a business. Then what? If not copycat, I have 3 suggestions. The first one is come up with innovative ideas. You just have to brainstorm within the team, keep coming up with ideas. So in the first part when I was interviewing all the executives, I did not judge or I did not say the ideas was good or bad. I just noted all of them down, and even up to a certain extent of no constraint. You know, just imagine there's no constraint. We are not making, we have huge amount of cash or what. What is some of your ideas? You know, just come up with all the ideas and consolidate and discuss as a team. Number 2, think of something that can differentiate ourselves from the competition. And number 3, capitalize on the company's own unique resources. Very important. Every company has their own unique resources, their competitive strength. We have to know it very well so we can use ideas and differentiation, map it into the company's unique resources and strength, and execute. So the third section is the strategy adopted. The third thing is to decide what to do. So for that business, we actually understand all the customer pain point by different market segment. You know, those white collar, blue collar, student, competitor, where are they doing, what are they doing? And through a lot of studies, a lot of discussions, and analyzing a lot of data, we came to see that there's an underserved market segment, which was the snack food for students. So we try to map those snack food to produce into the resources that the company has, you know, the factory capabilities, its distribution. Then we came up with a brand new product innovation business model. We know that in order to launch the snack food, we have to adjust our existing business model into something of the product innovation business model. So in order to execute product innovation business model, there are three things that we did. The first one, understand the customers. The customers for students, they do not have a lot of income, so their willingness to pay is quite low. So these low prices have actually drive away big players because they don't consider this segment as attractive. And those players who are serving this snack noodle, they're all very fragmented. Some are very cheap price, some are the quality is so-so, you know. So it's very fragmented. The second strategy is the operation. In order to produce snack noodle, what are the investments required? And we found that machineries, and if we make that projections of reaching a certain target quantity, pay back our investment within 2 years. And then we have to align our operations into this new business strategy by setting up the product development department just for snack noodle. Third point is delivery. This snack noodle has a similar distribution network of our existing distribution, except we have to go one more step to develop the tuck shops, the mom and pop shops near the schools. So we quickly set up the product development department just for snack noodle, and we went to examine the costs of manufacturing the snack noodle for students, addressing all their pain points. You know, for example, student wants a convenient food during recess, after lunch, after school. You know, they have some games, badminton, soccer, or basketball. They just want to have a snack, and this snack they want it to be affordable, tasty, and most likely is before their main meal. So the key value proposition is to target at affordability and convenience. Then after that, once we know that, we have to manufacture them at a cost that the student can afford, as the willingness to pay were low. So as the finance business partner, what was my role? Now, from the beginning to the end, collecting data and the strategy formulation discussion, I was heavily involved. From every data that comes from marketing, sales, production, I give a evaluation, and also some of the numbers on the market situation I produce and I prepared and I share with the whole team. So I was interacting a lot with the BU head and other members of the senior management, and I also play a devil's advocate. You know, what happened if this strategy? What happened if it fails? What happened if that comes? You know, what are the risk factors that we have to consider? How do we mitigate, or what? Then I realized there are three important things to win the respect of all these BU heads and other members of the senior management team. Number one, we have to be very humble. We have to listen, understand, and pace these people. For example, person A, he speaks very fast, and person B, he speaks rather slowly. So I have to pace their communication style and to mirror their communication style in order to build a lot more rapport, listen, and also to give my ideas. And second thing, influencing them. You know, everyone have their own separate agenda, separate opinion of how things should be turned around. So I realized that I can, as a finance business partner, I can be the one to initiate meetings, gather a lot of people together, especially those silo information, organize meetings, gather everybody together, all the ideas we discuss in a very open discussion. I realized when we discuss things openly, gathering support from all the senior management, especially the BU heads, becomes a lot easier. Number three, measuring the value creation. Now, this is very important. Every finance profession will know measuring value creation and value capture. We are changing our business strategy, going into different market segment. So whatever dimension that we use to measure our existing business, it becomes not so relevant. So we have to design something different for this snack noodle to monitor the value captured and measure how our strategy is executing. We also went to agree a lot of KPIs, operational, some are financial, with all the BU heads and other members of the senior management team, so that we all agreed these are the measurement parameters, and all of us work towards this to turn around the company. I want to give you an example. Previously, there was one senior management team member who brought up the case that the sales team commission has to be changed. So I quickly went to take a look at the sales commission scheme, and I realized that the existing method was just to give commission based on quantity sold. I gave the suggestion that we should use gross margin and the collection of debt as another additional parameters before we give a commission scheme. Then as a result, our sales team is more driven to sell the more higher margins product, and we are more prompt in cash collections, and that helps a lot in easing the cash situation of the company. So as a finance business partner, never underestimate your role. Anything that you see not working, raise it up, organize meeting, even think hard what are some of the strategy that you can use to overcome these difficulties faced by the company. What actually happened? The market segment was not so crowded. We went to launch the right product at the right price, targeting at a school. So within 18 months, miracle, our market share was actually 1%, reaching bankruptcy. Then it skyrocketed to 20%, just over 18 months. So the company started, has a lot of profit and cash. And then we invest in a lot of new flavor. When we launched this noodle, it was just 2 flavors, then eventually launched 6, 7, 8 flavors. We get the famous movie star to endorse on our snack noodle, the favorite cartoon character. We have lucky draws. We allow people to try different things, to have their own choice of making, buying flavor, different flavor to add on their snack noodle. You know, we did a lot of things after that, and the company continued to prosper. And finance business partner always measure the value creation side and highlight which are the issues happening, you know, whether strategy is executing as per what we have planned, and which are the things that we have to modify. And then through that way, and also giving a lot of ideas, input on moving forward, what should we be doing? We are helping to steer the business. So the 3 things I went through. First thing, how we get started, scoping the turnaround by understanding external forces and business strategy adopted. I went through all these 3 things. So this is a summary of what I went through. So my last section is just to share on the COVID-19 outbreak. Now, all this I've shared with a lot of friends before. A lot of people all know that now potential losses are tourism, aviation, manufacturing of non-essential, and the winners, of course, medical supplies, e-commerce, all that. So to turn around loss-making operations, those 3 points which I mentioned, I think they're more relevant to those potential losers as of now. I just received this Blackstone report this month. It's fresh from the oven. Blackstone actually mentioned that there's no clarity of recovery until year 2022. So they take reference from the dot-com bubble burst, where it took 21 months from recession to the peak, end of the to get out of the recession. And the 2008 financial tsunamis, it took 14 months. So now we are here. By the time we reach recovery mode, it might be 2022. A bright light is this statistics, this developed economy. In June, they're projecting negative GDP. And in September, most of them has done much better than in June in terms of minimizing the negative GDP. But for developing economies, it's a different picture. Mexico, India, Argentina, South Africa, in June, they projected less GDP losses. And now they project even heavier GDP negative. The only exception is China. China was predicting a minus 2% GDP in June. Right now, China is projecting a 2% growth. And we can see China fast improving. You can see the latest 7 or 8 days National Day holiday. There's no restriction, no lockdown. A lot of people in China travel, spend, and it was just like the days before COVID-19. So I have 3 things to share with you before I go off and finish my lecture, my sharing. The first thing is, now it's time to look at the new norms. Everybody was talking about new norms. Everybody is guessing. Nobody knows who is the new norm. So it is a prime time for us to look at scenario planning, A, B, C. If A happens, what should we do? If B happens, what should we do? If C happens, what should we do? And also to ask ourselves whether there's any changes in business model that is required. And thirdly, any technology, that we should use to help us to turn around our operations. Now, I have recently I just read 3 books I want to share with you, one Harvard Business Review. It's called promise-based management. The essence of execution. Whatever strategy that you have, for them to be successful, execution is the key. So you can read that article. And I mentioned about the technique about no constraint rule. Actually, I learned it from this book called The Change the Question, Change Your Life. This Mary J. Adams, she actually introduced this book. And if you change your question, you can actually brings a lot more out from a person and even yourself. And then if you're feeling very down, very miserable over the COVID-19 affecting our business, so there this book called The 5 Steps to Rewire and Detox Your Brain by Dr. Caroline Leaf, which you can refer to. So with that, I want to end with this very, very famous quote from this person called Savio Kwan. He was one of the co-founder of this mega listed company called Alibaba. Now, at that point, he made this 2 sentences. Alibaba only have 6 months of cash remaining. So he went to ask every staff this basic question. He said, now go back to the basic. What the key value proposition are and what are we doing here? Are we just doing things or are we winning? A company with a strategy knows how to win. So with this last word and my sharing, this is my email. Please add me to your LinkedIn if you find that we can connect and talk about collaborations. And these are the 2 of my articles which I recently published. So feel free to read it. So that's all my sharing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, CF Wong, for sharing your amazing experience of turning around this loss-making operation and also how we can apply these principles in the current times of COVID-19 pandemic. So, okay, there are some questions from the audience, so I would like to start with it. The first question is from Sahu. He asked, how did you manage to manufacture at lower cost?
Oh, okay. Manufacture of low cost, 2 things happened. The first thing is we changed the machines. Before that, the machines were very high costs. They were bought like more than 10 years ago. And the depreciation costs take a big chunk of that machine's costs. The second thing that we do is we go into every details, every manufacturing processes, which are processes that we can save costs, what kind of material that we could use to make it more optimized, and then how can we reduce the production time. Technically, they call it the tech time. So all this very, very detailed stuff, we have engineering people, production engineering people to look at it. And at the same time, as finance business partner, we took some of this data and then we have that discussion with manufacturing to play devil's advocate, are we too conservative on this tech time, the standard hours, are we too conservative? What is the historical information? Yeah, can we do better? This instant noodle only produced within an hour, for example. Is there any way that we can produce within 80% or 70% of the normal production hours? What must happen? Very important to change the question to stimulate the changing of their mindset.
Yeah, I think that's a very excellent example. And I think what you mean to say, you collaborated very effectively with all the operations and all the non-finance business functions. Yeah.
Yep.
The next question is from, most companies are reluctant to base their commission structure on GM, means a gross margin basis. So because they do not want their sales force to know the margin. So how did you deal with this challenge?
Okay, gross margin is the definition. Okay, you don't have to show everything in your accounting books on gross margin to your sales staff. You just agree the key parameters within the gross margin to base this on a agreed numbers to evaluate your sales staff. For our case, we base it on a selling price plus some of the direct costs related to the product. The material costs, we give a standard cost. We didn't review the entire material costs, just in case the salespeople are going to run away and start working for a competitor. So have that conversation with the sales and marketing and the BU heads and even the manufacturing and engineering heads. Agree on some parameters to measure the gross margin. It is not the normal accounting gross margin, for your information.
Okay.
Does it help?
Yeah, that's right. And the next question is, okay, there are lots of questions, so I'm trying to get all of them. What technological tools are you using in your organization for finance?
Oh, there's quite a lot. From consolidation, we use the IBM software to automate the consolidation of a lot of 100 over subsidiary to business intelligence. We actually use business intelligence. You can use Tableau. You can use Power BI. To draw business analytics report. All these reports are very easy to use. Just some orientation. You can even train the operational people to use it. And once you get hooked by the business intelligence software, a lot of operational data you can just upload into this platform, and operation, finance, anybody can produce their own reports and do their own business analytics. But does it help your question?
Yeah, I think that makes much sense. And next question is, what are the KPI of the finance business partnering? Or the KPIs that we should use?
Okay. The usual KPIs will be, how fast you spend on your month-end reporting, how fast you should process your AP or AR, the FP&A, the usual stuff. But as an effective finance business partner, you have to ask your stakeholder, do they want from finance accounting? Once you understand that, then you agree the KPIs to measure together with them. For example, in the past, nobody measured finance accounting on how soon they come up with the actual figures and forecast figures. So a lot of people are making a lot of noise. So eventually we have to call for a meeting, and I have to ask them frankly, what do you expect from us? So they'll ask me, hey, you have to be state of the art, you have to market compliance. Okay, so what is that? So I have to do a bit of research, and I saw a couple of listed company, ask some of my friends, including some of the Mecca alumni, ask them, oh, how many days do you spend on closing your month end? So if I have some of this data from the market, some of them, they say, oh, subsidiary within 1 day, group consolidation within 4 days or what. Once I get a lot of this kind of market benchmark, I use this as a benchmark tools to distribute with my management and make sure that they agree. So if you want to talk about some are financially driven, some are non-financially driven. Non-financially driven, I would ask yourself to speak to the major stakeholders and tell them and agree on the KPIs that you want to measure the effectiveness of finance and accounting. Of course, you yourself also must do some homework. Don't benchmark with the people from the industry or from other finance and accounting department. Did I answer your question?
Okay, I think that's fine. And the next one is, how did you do the benchmarking against the competitors? How you get the data?
Oh, okay. Some of them are available. Listed companies available on the internet, and some of them have uploaded their competitor information on YouTube. If you can attend their investors presentation, you should. AGM investors presentation, where they share a lot of this kind of data. They share their strategy, they share moving forward, what are they going to do. So from there, you will have a very good source of information, and use that source of information to benchmark against what you're doing. You might not get very detailed operational data because these are competitive advantage, and most of the time is quite confidential. But you should be able to get those key data. Those financial analysts always measure what price to book ratio, PE ratio, those working capital ratio. Those are quite easily available. Even Bloomberg has it. Those operational data, some reports will have them, especially industry reports.
Okay. And the next one is, hi, CEO. I imagine there was some resistance to investing in Capex when the company was losing market share and perhaps money. How did you convince your board to invest?
Capex, when you present a Capex, you have to present in such a way that how long, what's the payback period? All the board members will always ask you payback period. If your business is loss-making, they might set a very low payback period. 1 year, whatever I invest 1 year, I want to get back the money, or 1 or 2 years. But if you're making a lot of money and you're investing for the long term, they might give you 5 years or even up to 10 years of payback period. So it depends a lot on the appetite of, number one, depends on a lot on the situation of your company. Number two, depends on the appetite of your board. So you have to understand that first. You have to get a feel of this first. And you can ask the people who's working in a company for a while. You can ask the board member, have informal conversation with them. Get a feel of all this thing first before you go present. So it will make your case much easier to get approval.
Yeah, I think that's excellent response, as you mentioned about the payback period, exactly. And the next question from Chi, and sustainability is now becoming important strategy to win customer and competitors. How to effectively balance the Capex for growth versus Capex for sustainability, given the current uncertainty posed by the global pandemic?
They have to do it.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Yeah, CFO, we can't hear you. I think some problem from my side, but yeah, we can't hear you.
He's left actually.
Maybe he lost his connections, I think.
Yeah, the connection got lost. Thank you, Zishan. Great questions. And great topic also.
Okay, thank you very much, Khalid sir, for joining and for taking our time. And I think, yeah, almost we have covered all the points. So I hope, I think unfortunately he lost the connections. Maybe some technical.
Yeah, sorry, lost connection. I'm back. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Just a quick one, CF. What did you do to change the finance function to face these challenges? What were the key things that you made changes in your own finance function?
I think there are two. Number one, I think we have to switch our mindset from being somebody who's control. Oh, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. Change that mindset into providing services, support, and be humble. That's quite important. We do not gain people's support by being a very strong man, tough or what. Nobody's going to support you. The first thing we have to do is being very humble, listen first, then slowly ask questions. So the entire finance team, traditionally, finance people, oh, I come up with the P&L, this is the numbers. So you ask me the numbers, the variance, no, this is a fact, no, this is what happened, this is what happened. Traditional finance people will tell you this. But I think instead of doing that, you say, oh, these are the numbers that we came up with. Is there anything that we could do better?
Right.
How can we improve? Change that question. Then people will start to build a lot of rapport with you. Number two, you have to learn a lot about the business. You learn a lot of business as if you are running the business. A lot of people say, oh, I'm only finance. How would I know operations? How would I know marketing? How would I know engineering? No, I don't think we need to know the operational procedures of this department, but we have to know their key functions in the entire value chain, as if I'm running the company. I'm quite sure the GM, the CEO, sometimes they also do not know the detailed operations of those departments, but eventually they can manage the whole company because they know the key things. What is the key value add of these functions? So we have to understand them and how. People say, hey, you're finance and accounting, why you ask so many questions? Why you need to know? We have to build rapport with them first. Make sure that we are comfortable. If they are not comfortable with you, they are not going to share with you. So one thing we can do is ask for training courses. The training courses should not be restricted to just finance and accounting. It can be for the rest of the company. Let's say Department A, engineering department. You can speak to all their department heads, all the division heads, and say, why don't we run a training session? Engineering can be the first one to do a training session. All of us sit in, understand their technical terms that they use, understand their key KPIs and what is the main value add. Then following month, it could be marketing. Tell us about the market, tell us about the situation, tell us about your marketing strategy. It can be rotated month by month, and different functions can attend over the course of 1 year, 2 years. Just like a soccer player, you keep practicing soccer every day, day in, day out. Tennis player, day in, day out, you keep practicing. You're going to acquire the business knowledge. It's not going to be acquired overnight, especially your finance and accounting. Because I realized this when I was trying to transform the finance and accounting function. People doesn't want to tell me, and there's so many technical jargon outside the functions, very hard to learn. But slowly, accumulation, year by year.
Thank you. That was great.
Okay, I think we have covered almost all the questions, and now we are reaching to the close of this conclusion. So, CF Wong, if any, we have last 2 to 3 minutes, so if you want to give any advice for the finance professionals who just have the concluding remarks.
Just one thing, continue to persevere, be humble, learn the business. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you very much, CF Wong, for your time and for such a wonderful presentation and sharing your real experience, I think. And thank you all the audience as well who shared such insightful questions during the session. So thank you everyone, and I hope you got lots of value from him, and we will love to see you in our upcoming webinars as well. So thank you very much. Take care and good night.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Good night. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, CF.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wong.
Thank you, Atif.
Thanks, Dishan.